All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video. And ever since the engine blew in my 340i, a lot of you guys have been giving me suggestions on what I should do next. And a lot of those suggestions are reminding me that a lot of us B58 owners are just still delusional. And it's not really our fault. I think it's just kind of a part of being on the internet. We see so many of these cars coming out of the gate making 1,000+ horsepower and running 8 seconds in the quarter mile after somebody's only owned it for 6 months, and it just seems like this never-ending rat race to the top. And it is something that's really cool. I mean, it's awesome to see, but I do want to kind of help level set the community if I can, to remind you guys that the internet is not a real place. This is not something that's probably as rampant as you think. And I even feel like in some cases, I'm a part of the problem. So let's go ahead and sit here and ramble about it a little bit. Hopefully you guys will hear what I have to say, and hopefully you guys find this video useful.
Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future.
Now, I want to preface all of this by saying if you are in this group of people that are just flying in light years ahead of anything that I've accomplished with my cars, this is not a shot at you in any case. It's just something that I think we need to really reevaluate what makes sense and what the average B58 owner experience looks like. So for example, in my case, a lot of people reach out to me and say they want to have multiple B58s. They see all of my cars being big turbo, making over 600 horsepower, and that's all good and dandy, but I will be the first to admit this would not be possible on my own. Everything that you guys see on my channel has been accomplished because of the work that I put in on this channel, sponsors that have come on board, partners that help me build my cars. All of that is what makes this possible, and without them, I would absolutely not be in the position that I'm in. These cars both having big turbo kits were not necessarily in my cards when I was originally planning out how I wanted to do, my garage and plan out the cars that I was going to own. But over time, finding opportunities and different ways to make my hobby pay for itself really helped pave the way to get me to this point in life. So this is honestly just a side hustle. This is my second job. I've still got a full-time job separate from this that I do. I know a lot of you guys still think that I do YouTube full-time or something like that, but this is just something that I do to help my hobby pay for itself, and that's exactly why I started getting into it. So thankfully it's working out. I've accomplished a lot and I feel really good about my current position, but I don't want anybody to feel like they're less than because they don't have what I have. And speaking of which, I don't have as much compared to a lot of people. Let's talk about that. So one of the biggest suggestions when the B58 blew in my 340i was just get another car, get an M340i, get a Supra, get an M3 and things like that. And while I would love to jump into another car really quickly, I mean, looking at some of the prices of these cars, it's just absolutely not going to happen. And when you see the price of an M3 going over $100,000, I don't think anybody should act like the assumption is any and everybody should be able to achieve that. These cars are extremely expensive, and neither of my cars that I pay full price for, my 440, I did buy it brand new, but this was in 2017 when you were still able to get a discount, and I actually leased it for the first 3 years, so I got really cheap payments, and then I ended up buying it out after the lease because I didn't want to move into a G series at the time. So I was able to get into this car for a pretty good deal, and then the 340, of course, you guys know I bought it from Copart. At the time, 340s were easily going over $30,000 depending on the condition, and I was able to win the bid on the 340 for less than $15,000 just to kind of put things into perspective. So I bought it knowing that it had engine issues based on the previous owner's experience, but my priority was getting a car that was cheap, something that I could maintain and fix if I needed to. And even if it did need an engine, I figured it would work out to still being a pretty good value. So again, I'm not out here buying a bunch of brand new cars and modifying them right out of the gate. This is something where I am genuinely trying everything I can to get the best bang for your buck, to save some money and make this work within my tax bracket. Now, of course, I'm kind of playing myself in this aspect because, one of my friends bought an M4 and I told him, oh, it would be awesome if I could get into one of those one day. And the first thing he said was, well, maybe if you didn't have 3 different cars with the same engine, then you could afford something a little more expensive. And that's one of those things that we just don't talk about. So yeah, again, I mean, this is something that you kind of need to figure out based on your financial position, what car you're able to get into. I think honestly, anybody with a B58 is doing very well considering how things are going nowadays. So it's really just something for you to enjoy. And they are a really big bang for your buck out of the box, even with nothing done to them. But speaking of which, what if we don't want to leave these cars stock and just drive them like they come out of the box? A lot of us want to be able to modify these cars and get a little bit more performance out of them. And the good thing is that these cars are very easy to mod and relatively cheap. It is a pretty good value compared to other comparable vehicles. But that still doesn't mean it's free. That still means it costs money. And I always hear people say, if you can afford a 340i or if you can afford a Supra, then you should be able to do X, Y, and Z. That's not really the case. At the end of the day, 95% of these cars are completely bone stock driving around. And just because you can afford the car, it doesn't mean you can afford to tune it and break it and fix it and all of these things. You very well could be relying on that warranty to keep the vehicle and maintain it in the future. So I think that's completely fair. If you do look at modifications though, there are a couple things to consider. One is, I've said it before and I'll say it again, a stage 1 tune is the absolute best value mod, period. Nothing will compare to the gains that you get for the money, and everything that you do above and beyond that gets exponentially less return and exponentially more cost. So of course, if you just start with a stage 1 tune, you can get in around, 400 to 600 bucks. But when you start doing bolt-ons and trying to run higher ethanol mixes, you end up spending closer to $2,000, maybe even closer to $2,500. But that just by itself is the cost of a turbo. So suddenly you've doubled that investment just to push the car up to 600 plus wheel horsepower. And there is a very good reason why all of my cars stay in that range. As you go above and beyond that, the biggest thing that you need to do is buy a transmission. And transmission upgrades get very expensive. You can see from Pure, they go anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. Where if you go to Applied Torque Solutions, they go from anywhere from $6,000 to $12,000, depending on how much power you want to make in the future. And I know a lot of people default and go to the stage 2 or the stage 3 just so that it's future proof. But obviously that's a significantly larger investment. Then once you've pushed it beyond the stock trans limits, you're going to approach the engine limits pretty quickly. And again, this is easily in the 5-figure range. If you look, you can see they're as cheap as, maybe an $8,000 build stage 1 from P-Tuned, but it goes all the way up to $27,000 for a stage 4 Savage kit from KLM. And it, of course, can probably go even higher than that depending on the options you go with. So these things get extremely expensive. You can easily put a transmission and an engine build together and spend over $40,000 on a $25,000 car. That's just not really in the cards for me. Again, I think anybody that's really committed to this platform should be applauded because they're accomplishing some really crazy things. But it's okay to say this isn't really what I want to invest all of my time and money into. I really just want a fun daily driver. And I think a lot of these cars with a stock turbo, just full bolt-on and a little bit of E, will definitely get you there. And on that note, we can easily transition over to talking about other platforms. Maybe you don't want to invest your entire future into building the fastest B58 or S58 out there. Maybe you want to move into a different platform like Audi or Mercedes or Porsche. Maybe one day you want to drive something else. I think that's perfectly fine. That's something that most people are probably thinking about. And so if you don't want to invest that extra money to push the car to the next level and you'd rather just save it for the next car, again, that's perfectly fine. I just think we've kind of sucked ourselves into this bubble where we think that every car needs to be getting faster and faster, and every Black Friday we should have a list of things that we're trying to buy to push our cars to the next level and surprise everybody next season. But that doesn't have to be the case. I mean, these cars are very enjoyable with minimal mods. And if you do ever want to move on to a different platform, it's a lot easier to sell your car if it's something that easily can be reverted to stock. So again, just something to consider. Think about your future goals and aspirations and what else you want to be able to own and experience. And that should kind of help you gauge what you want to invest in your current vehicle. So yeah, again, this is just to remind you that the internet is not a real place. And yes, a lot of the things that we see and consume on social media might make us think that we're doing something wrong. Like, why can't I afford to do this level of performance and build on my own car? But if it's just your daily driver and you're kind of just getting into modifying cars, there is no shame in just enjoying what you have. I love seeing what these guys are able to accomplish. Personally, I just don't think I have it in me to push a car that far, but maybe one day we'll see if that changes. Of course, if other people are willing to support and help your boy get this car built to the next level, I'm open to trying just about anything. But as it stands with me and what I enjoy, I think both of my cars are at a perfect level. And even when they were stock turbo, I had a lot of fun with them. So hopefully this kind of helps speak for the people and those of us that are struggling to keep up with the Joneses, if you will. I don't think that we should have to deal with that as a community, and there's no reason to assume that that's how it's going to stay. So for those of you that are still going, keep going. Hope to see what you guys can accomplish going into the rest of this year. Otherwise, I think that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.